All right. Well, hello, Jennifer Williams. It's nice to have you on the bridge.
Thanks for having me. I've been so excited for this conversation. I'm thrilled that
Aw.
you've created this new podcast.
Yeah, thanks. It is truly my love letter to educators. I feel that way, and I feel like I just not everybody gets an opportunity in our field to pause and like connect with others. And like we were saying this before we got on the call, like how lucky am I that I got to like ask for a whole hour on your calendar, even though I'm not going to take it. But like, oh my gosh, that is not lost on me, and it's so I'm grateful to have you with us. You are a busy educator and mama and human. So,
Well, you are the absolute right person to host these stories, and I'm really happy to have our little story shared today. So I
totally.
appreciate you,
Oh
Kate.
my gosh. Well, let's start with that little story. So, part of why I wanted to have you on this episode, or this podcast, was because I have, I mean, our journey started maybe like 8, 9, 10 years ago. I think our worlds kind of we started orbiting together in ed tech, and you're over on the other coast. So I think our worlds didn't orbit as close back in the beginning, but I always knew of this Jennifer Williams. And like I always knew you were around, and you were and it's so funny to go back in time and see you in pictures and realize we were in the same spaces and maybe didn't even pause
Yeah,
long enough to say
right.
hi. But what has your journey, I mean, what's the highlight reel of your journey that got you here, and like what do you do in education?
Yeah. Oh, I think you're so right on that. We were like crisscrossing in all that we were doing and running in parallel, but then not ever
Right.
intersecting, I think. But I feel like you and I made this like intentional decision to make sure we were finding
Mm-hmm.
ways to connect though.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful for that with our friendship and our collaborations. But yeah, you're right. I am on the other coast and I'm in Florida in the United States, but I get to work with teachers all around the world, which is just the best. We are working now with teachers in 180 countries
Incredible.
and every subject area, working with students of every age, which for me is just amazing. And I get to represent that community in conversations like this. But it definitely didn't start there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always evolving. But I'm like you, an educator my whole career, and started off as a classroom teacher, was a school principal, moved to higher ed, working with pre-service teachers, got quite interested in this space around
Mm-hmm.
innovation and finding ways that we could use educational technology to connect people in shared experiences, and then kind of just started following along with other people who had a similar focus and a similar kind of sense of purpose around social
Mm-hmm.
action and empowering people, learners. It could be students, but also teachers. And so we've been guided a lot by some different practices than different kind of roadmaps, like the UN SDGs, which I'm sure
Uh-huh.
we'll dive in
Uh-huh.
today. And every day I'm amazed. Like truly, we get to do some fun work with some great people and some great organizations that care about the
Yeah.
people and the planet.
So this is what I think is really interesting. Like and again, I always like to mention our audience, and even though I'm sure other people are listening, but when this idea for this podcast first came to be, it was to bridge the expertise of educators through stories, and to infuse this understanding and love of education community into all different levels of educators. And you clearly, like, through your story, been in the classroom, been an administrator, taught higher ed. Now you're in the nonprofit space. So what did it look like to decide to leave like K-12 and move into higher ed? And then I'm really curious, like, at what point you decided to launch into this global nonprofit called Take Action Global, which is an
Yeah.
amazing organization.
Thanks, Kate. I mean, I think for me, it was just like being
Yeah.
curious, really. I didn't know. And I think that for me, definitely holds true that when I entered into my profession of being a teacher, I thought there was this one path. Like that's all I
Yeah.
ever knew about. I was going to be a classroom teacher. I couldn't wait to get into my classroom. I dreamed about bulletin boards and the arrangement of my desks. I mean, even when I was a young girl, it was me imagining taking attendance and giving tests. And so that view, that's all I knew,
Yeah.
like as a student growing up, and then what I thought it would be to be a teacher. That's what I saw. And that's what I saw for my whole career. And that was great. Like I was all in on that. And then this idea of how can learning take shape in a different way? You talk about storytelling and bridging. And so I think that curiosity of what are other ways that school is globally, I wanted to learn. And so I think that's what drew me into this space of global collaboration and social action. And then when I left K-12 and moved into higher ed, I had been doing a lot with global collaboration and virtual exchange. And
And what year is this?
I
Just to like
think
frame the globe. Okay.
2010 to
Okay.
2015, I think there was, you were a part of it too, this big movement into ed tech, and it was about one-to-one and implementation and how do we outfit our schools and our classrooms with things like carts.
Yeah.
So that was taking, I think, the main part of the work that we were seeing out with anything around innovation. So teachers, I don't know if at that point they really understood where they fit into the conversation around global ed, but when the UN and our world came together in 2015, and we then had these global goals,
Yes.
this set of 17 goals that I think were developed with purpose, but also with a lot of hope. We started to see maybe where we as teachers and schools and communities of learners could fit into that conversation. So anyone that doesn't know these 17 goals, they really range from talking about gender to talking about life on land, life underwater. We're looking at sustainable cities. We're talking about poverty and hunger and food and water. And what I found then, and it even took a while, but starting in 2015 until now, we're 10 years in on the SDGs, working toward 2030. I see teachers really understanding, like, okay, I'm a humanities teacher, I'm in the social sciences, the global goals are me. I am a science teacher, I teach environmental ed, or I teach biology, the global goals are me. I'm a PE teacher, I'm outdoors every day, I'm experiencing climate change, the global goals are me. So we started to see where teachers, I think maybe for a lot of us for the first time, felt acknowledged and
Wow.
felt like we could really contribute. So that for me was a moment where everything kind of changed. And it started to bring this idea of belonging that you talk about a lot, and I know you've talked about over the years, where we as teachers kind of felt like we could maybe belong in this space. And it didn't need to be about sameness. It needed to be about this shared purpose. And so maybe we had one teacher in a school saying, I'm on board, this is something I'm doing. Here, she the only teacher in that school, but maybe they're connecting with another teacher in a different part of the world. And then they could connect and then move those conversations forward. So that was a powerful time, I think. And we've done so much since then. We have a long way to go. But I do think that that identity building is where it all kind of kicked into gear.
So I would agree. I can't believe the SDGs are only 10 years old. I never thought about that when they started, but of course that origin story is fascinating, and I love that you were in a position where you could actually like double down on it when you were seeing it. And like I just wrote that down, like when you were saying the global goals are me, and people are starting to see to see their passions reflected in frameworks and in a global mission, right? And in a sense, there's like, I mean, I'm transitioning over to this idea of mentorship, and I'm thinking like I love a good set of standards. Like I heart frameworks. I really do. Like I any guidance that can be provided, I like a script and then I like to break it. And I like to make it my own and fit the world that I'm in. And I think that's why I really like the SDGs because they're so flexible. They're so all over the place. And they bring so many um what seem to be separate concepts, like they unite them in a way that makes them feel like digestible, attainable, connected. So I'm curious, who has been or how have you been mentored? Like, have you had in an individual or two or group like come in and kind of take you under their wing? And what was that like?
Always get really happy when I can think about mentorship because I do believe that we in education can do this better than anyone out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is us, right? So, okay, so when we start to think about what we're specifically focused on at Take Action Global, our nonprofit, so we are all in on climate education for all. My background is literacy. So I was a literacy specialist, a speech language pathologist. I'm all about the communication side of the work. And I land in this space that we're focused on climate sciences, something I knew very little about. And so I've had to look to our community of climate scientists, our community of expert educators, students who have really been leading the way. How cool to be able to
Wow.
co-construct with some of these great minds. And that was very new for me because when we were talking about, transforming teaching and learning and saying, okay, we need to get out of the front of the classroom, or we need to be posing questions to our students that we may not have the answers to. That's really hard. I think sometimes that's artificial for our teachers to ask that of them because honestly, they do have the answers. If I'm going to be like, well, I don't know what a pronoun is, I think our students see right through that. But this was different because we don't oftentimes have the answer. So we're able to look at our students and say, I really don't know. Or these SDGs, these Sustainable Development Goals, I don't necessarily understand yet how we're going to implement them, but do you want to learn alongside me? So I feel like mentorship for me personally has really taken form through this work that I've been going through for the past 10 years. But I do know that within our work, we think about the design of our programs, we recognize that a lot of our teachers come from a similar path in that they have not been explicitly directed in how to bring climate education into the classroom. And so they don't have that identity as a climate action educator. They might think, well, that's someone else is doing that. Someone else is checking that box. Who am I to come in? So that's, I think, the first work that we do is around identity building with our teachers, our participants. And we say to them, you are a climate action educator. If not you, then who? Like now is the time. Right. If you're part of this work, you are the ones that will lead. So it's a huge opportunity. And so it's this interesting, I would say, when we think about mentorship, that is very top down. I am a mentor. I have been given that role. Someone told me that I have that role, much like in our positions as teachers, you are told you are a third grade teacher, or you are an arts teacher for seventh graders, or whatever it may be. Here, we're able to not have it be top down. It is definitely much more of a spiral. Yeah. So our teachers 1 year may be a mentor because they have experience or expertise in something like reaching out to the local government and being able to move ideas forward. But maybe the next year they're the learner, but then the next year they're able to cascade new ideas forward. So it's this constant spiral, and I think for us it's what are we going to learn together, and it's not this pressure that we see in traditional mentorship. So it's fascinating to watch. It's It's such a cool space.
Girl, I have never thought of mentorship as a spiral, but
Oh,
I'm gonna take that as my nugget because you're right in a sense. Like it's always, and I don't know if it's a spiral up or down. I don't know if that matters, but it's that idea of like we're
right.
just going around and around and building momentum as we do it. And that is such a beautiful metaphor, I think. Because there's almost like a finality to mentorship. Like you get into, especially in education, right? Like you're a young teacher, you're just starting out, you're a novice teacher, not young. And you're just starting out in the classroom and you're assigned your mentor. And then you have that mentor for a year. And then you are released from said mentor. And everything's supposed to make sense. And it doesn't. It never does. So like
No, never does. And it always is changing.
right. And how empowering to take that model and say, actually, no, this is an ongoing spiral of support. I like that it takes the spiral notion and kind of turns it into a really positive thing too.
Right. We're spiraling out of
Yeah.
control. No, we're that it's those and those circles within the spiral. They can
Yeah.
grow with each new interaction and we all can contribute.
Yes.
Mentor, mentee.
Yes.
We had we have a project that we have been working on with the UN. It's called the Goals Project, and we had a design challenge with it. It happens every January through March, and it's a fun 6-week global project. Classrooms can join, but we always try to incorporate a virtual exchange element to everything that we do. We want our students to be working with other students who may live or look differently, but talking about these same
Yeah.
connecting pieces. And so, because that project moves so quickly, and we're already asking teachers to think about these global topics, but then also use ed tech for connection and sharing and documenting and reporting. There's a lot happening in that project. So then adding a virtual exchange, which in itself could be the project, was something that we felt we just wouldn't have time
Yeah.
for. So we looked to our youth for the solution there because we used this great tool Padlet, and we had 6 weeks, we had 6 topics that we wanted to hit, and so we had a global youth ambassador really be our voice for that
Wow.
week. And so we had them record a message, and then it all was done asynchronously, but we had students then go in and they were able to listen to those recordings and then respond when it made sense for them. But the coolest thing happened, Kate, so that project it's almost been a year now. I get still daily, students going in and responding to those videos. So the mentorship, like
Wow.
it can be a spiral, but also it can just go on. So it's that ripple
Yep.
across time, across space, across people. It's vast. And so I think that inspiration is really interesting on how we can use some of these opportunities to keep the learning going. It doesn't have that finality
Right.
like you mentioned with traditional mentorship.
Right. And that's kind of like that momentum of the spiral. Like someone is often seen as a mentee and kind of put in that box. But when you look at it, like as you're describing with the student stepping in, like, and then other students stepping in, and who knows who the next student ambassador is, they're already on that Padlet, you know, it's like you kind of dance between your roles. And that is, I think, especially right now in 2025 in education, and for students that are starting to discover passion areas, and actually our system, we've seen school systems all over the world. There are some school systems that are creating spaces for 20% time or for passion projects or problem-based learning, you know, and those spaces exist in ways that they didn't exist 10 years ago when we were so worried about, at least in California, and that's all I can speak to. But you know, we are still driven by the standards. But what about those standards that are strengthened when kids come to it with passion and with purpose? And I just love it. I have long had a crush on the work that you do, and I had an opportunity to partner with Take Action Global over this last year and do a little bit of headway into figuring out the beautiful chaos that is California education.
Yes.
So I thank you for that opportunity. I feel like I learned a ton, and one of my favorite memories that I had. I don't know if I've gotten a chance to tell you this in person, but um, so for those of you that don't know, Take Action Global partners with Lego Education Foundation, right? And actually, I'm gonna stop there. How did you guys get in with Lego Education Foundation? Can we ask? That is such an amazing partnership, and it's the project is so fun.
We're so lucky to work with that team. So the Lego Group with Lego Foundation are very much committed to this idea of learning through
Yes.
play. As we all know, a lot of us have experiences growing up with Lego bricks and building and designing. And so a large part of their work is using learning through play with purpose to build the
Yeah.
change. And so they have a commitment to some of these sustainability topics that we already are working on. So that partnership, I think we've been working with them for about the past five
Yeah.
years. And it started as awareness building. So we were doing a lot of webinars, but now we have dedicated programs. So we have monthly challenges that go out where classrooms are able to build with any
Hmm.
resources that they have available. It can be Lego bricks, it can be recycled materials, arts and crafts. Sometimes they're even using technology. And so those challenges go out, and it might be, okay, we need to create a structure that can be supportive for the certain species of birds. Or maybe we want to reimagine schools to be sustainable buildings. Or what happens if we go at a systems level and make a whole city that's sustainable? And so we have classrooms that are building in 30
Yeah.
minutes, some are taking 3 weeks, and then they're able to share back those ideas. And then the Lego group becomes a microphone, really trying to amplify solutions that students are creating. So yes, you and I had so much fun with that because I know creativity and play is part of your
Yeah.
DNA. So California educators definitely leading the way, I think, in that. But we're continuing on. That's one of our programs. But we have some great
Hmm.
partners that really are committed to taking care of people, taking care of the planet. Lego Group definitely being one of
Yeah.
those.
I had an opportunity to go into my daughter's classroom and
That's
teach that
right.
lesson and
That's
basically
right.
mentor her teacher and in this space. So talk about also just being new to this and be like, what's the thread that connects me to the kids that are in front of me right now? And it was play and creativity, and it was such a fun way to connect not only with the work that you and your team lead, but to connect with my daughter and to connect with her community, our community here in Santa Barbara, and her teacher continued to do the project even after and was sending me pictures and had the kids present. It was this really cool thing that I that you should know would never have happened had we not, had our paths not crossed. And that's just one of thousands of stories of connection that you probably don't get to hear. But
Yeah, I really love
mhm.
that. I love to hear that. And with your daughter, my daughter is older than
Mhm.
your daughter, but she's in college right now to be a
That's
teacher.
right.
And just last week, she had a presentation. She was like a little uncertain. She had to present to her peers, which is always so hard for our young college
Yeah.
students, I think. But she had to present on project-based learning, PBL. And I was like, oh my gosh, bring in Lego bricks. Everyone know, you don't even have to say anything. You
Mhm.
put them in front of people, they know exactly what they need to do. And so she did the sustainable
Did
school
she?
challenge, and yeah, it was a hit. I was like, yay! I had a little bags and kits ready for her. Yeah, I was like, I know how to help with that one. I can show up there. So yeah, I agree with you. I do think that these are those connections
Yeah.
that we can help do as teachers.
Yeah. Well, here's my last question for you, my friend.
Okay.
Um, what advice would you have for educators that might hear this and go, I do want to be a part of this larger conversation? Like, yes, we can put links in the show notes. So it's more like what social emotional advice do you have for those educators that are hungry to still be connected to a global purpose but might not feel like that's attainable right now?
There's there are so many things that we as teachers could do in a day. Like it's endless. And then when we layer on this idea of, okay, now we need to go save the world too. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of pressure. And so we do have a lot of teachers in our community who we're working with every day who, I observe what they do and how they're able to move from kind of, again, being the only maybe single
Yeah.
teacher in their school that are bringing topics around student action, student empowerment, global collaboration, virtual exchange. They might be the only ones doing it. And that can kind of feel lonely and scary. And you honestly, sometimes you don't know, do I have, am I the one that should be
Right.
doing this? Am I the right one? And so watching what they're able to do, and then in a short period of time, then we do see that identity shift, but they may be in their country, the person leading
Right.
it. And then they're going from really just someone who is on the edges, I think, to someone who's leading in the center, which is so cool to see. But what I do see with them is, I think, setting and going deep with attainable goals. So what I mean by that is something as simple, like we talk about small actions in a day, which sounds kind of trivial, but if I were to say, okay, I'm going to do, this quarter, I'm going to focus on a tree planting. Cool. Like I could go plant a tree today. I could run to the store, get a tree, plant it, and check that box. But I think going deeper, planting one tree, but understanding its roots, understanding that impact that tree will have for years to come, telling the story of that tree or that experience, it allows us, I think, to feel success and not focus on being overwhelmed. And teachers that I see that are doing that really well. They're not taking on too much. They're starting with one or two small things. They're also finding other people to do it with. And just going from there and seeing where it takes you, not putting too much pressure, I think, on yourself, sitting next to your students, locking arms with them, moving forward, always the best, I think, solution in any conversation, not just when we're talking about global education and sustainability. And then just go from there. Yeah. And I mean, you'll share, we have projects, we have people, we have groups. If you want to connect with a classroom, we have ways of doing that safely and in an accessible way. So reach out. We're excited to connect and support in whatever journey they're on.
Well, it's so fun to, one, just have time with you. And then two, also be able to, once again, just share resources connected to Take Action Global that I think really changes lives. So it's always an honor to be in your presence, my friend. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your mentorship of me. Like you've been a huge, like whether or not you've realized it, you have been guiding me for many, many years. And your work is foundational to so many people that like when in 2015, when you were asking those questions and getting started in your work at a global level, there was this group of ed techers that were getting started in our local communities. And there was always like, you were that leader that was moving ahead and kind of a beacon. And so I thank you for that. And you should know that you have such an amazing, you've had such an amazing impact on so many of us. So thank you for all you do, my
so
friend.
Kind. That really means so much to me. Well, thanks for being united with me and all that we do and for creating the space for stories. Pleased to be here.
Always, always. Until next time, my friend.
See you next time, Kate. Thanks for having me.